Warren Brookwood.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. So this bill is about strengthening West Australia's response to illicit tobacco and illegal vaping. The opposition supports decisive action. What we are seeing is not fragmented turf wars between rival groups. What we are seeing is coordinated criminal enterprise. There have already been fire bombings in Perth, shops have been targeted and attacked. This is organised, it is controlled and it is coercive. Western Australia cannot allow that model to entrench itself further. This legislation strengthens enforcement powers, increases penalties, expands definitions and introduces closure order mechanisms. Something stronger than what we currently have is necessary, but is it strong enough? But strong laws must also be workable laws, and they must be fair, particularly for regional West Australia. So what we've been learning from other states, in discussions with stakeholders, there was broad agreement that reform should proceed. But it also pays to look at what has occurred in Queensland. These illegal suppliers have adapted. Sales have shifted out of car boots in car parks through online platforms and social media channels, through informal delivery networks. When the law tightens in one space, criminal operators look for another. We must ensure this legislation is robust enough to prevent displacement rather than simply reshuffling the program. There should be sanctions available against the individuals who engage in illegal conduct. So I've got a few illegal tobacco and vape shops set up in my electorate, and the businesses next to them have reported, constantly the fear of safety, the loss of trade, the increase in insurance costs. There's even one instance where they can't get insurance for their front door because of the damage that's been done previously, and the insurance companies refuse to insure it. So that's now at a cost to them of about $5,000 every time it gets damaged. So there's just a lack of action when they report it, and then the backlash against those businesses when they try and stand up for themselves. It really is quite intimidating. So this bill introduces prescribed quantities which create a presumption of possession for sale. We've not yet seen those quantities as the details are in the regulations, and that is significant. We're being asked to pass primary legislation that creates serious criminal consequences, while the critical thresholds that activate those consequences will be set up later by regulation. In principle, regulation-making power is not unusual, but where the regulation determines whether possession is presumed to be for sale, whether a person faces indictable charges, whether the burden shifts to the accused, Parliament should have some clarity. The thresholds must reflect real-world retail practice. Regional businesses may bulk purchase for delivery for price efficiency, hold seasonal stock and transfer stock between stores, and temporarily store return product. We should not create a framework where ordinary commercial behaviour inadvertently triggers a presumption of criminal intent. Transparency before proclamation would strengthen confidence in this reform. The packaging compliance and due diligence. The definition of prohibited product captures breaches of Commonwealth packaging and product requirements. That raises practical questions. If a retailer purchased stock that is unlawful at the time and experiences a rule change after purchase, receives delivery of stock later found to be faulty. Should the retailer bear full criminal liability, small regional retailers rely heavily on suppliers. They do not have regulatory teams tracking every Commonwealth amendment. A clear due diligence mechanism would allow a retailer to demonstrate that the product was sourced from a licensed supplier, reasonable steps were taken to verify compliance, and prompt action was taken once they were aware of a problem. That distinction between organised crime and inadvertent non-compliance is essential. For the closure orders and community impact, the closure order powers are significant. A premise can be closed for 72 hours administratively. It can be then closed for up to 90 days by ministerial order. In a metropolitan area, there may be alternatives, but in a small regional town, closure of the only general store can mean no local groceries, no fuel, no essential goods, and there is currently no mandatory expedited review timeframe. There is no compensation regime if a closure is later found to have been wrongly made. We must ensure that there is a rapid review mechanism, written reasons provided, and clear differentiation between deliberate trafficking and isolated compliance breaches. Strong powers must be matched with strong safeguards. As penalties increase, so too does the risk profile. When criminal enterprises are facing multi-million-dollar fines, lengthy terms of imprisonment, the stakes rise. This has implications for the inspectors enforcing the law, police officers conducting compliance operations, shop staff who refuse to participate, members of the public who report the illegal activity, and those current businesses that have been standing up for their rights. When one organisation controls supply and uses intimidation to enforce compliance, enforcement activity becomes more dangerous. Government must ensure that those tasked with policing this regime are adequately resourced and protected, and enforcement capacity remains the linchpin. If inspections are infrequent, if regional presence is thin, under the counter sales and alternative supply channels will continue. Laws on paper do not dismantle organised crime. Consistent enforcement will. Acting Speaker, we support stronger penalties for organised criminal activity, alignment with Commonwealth standards, powers necessary to disrupt illegal supply chains, but we will seek to ensure that the final framework and regulations will provide clarity around prescribed quantities, include appropriate due diligence protections, and ensure liability is proportionate and directed at deliberate wrongdoing. Strengthen safeguards around closure orders and addresses emerging evasion tactics, including car boot and online sales. Properly resource enforcements, particularly in regional WA, we can protect public health. We can stand up to organised criminal activity, and we can do so without unfairly penalising small, law-abiding regional businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Member.